Hello and welcome to the Crimson Misery Podcast, episode 29. My name is Will Rainbolt. I hope you all are doing well. It is February 12th, 2025. If you are listening on Spotify, Apple, or wherever you get your podcasts, consider rating the show 5 stars. If you are listening on YouTube, like, subscribe, comment down below. And let's get right into it. We have a lot to get to today. First of all, I just want to say congratulations to the Philadelphia Eagles for winning Super Bowl 59. They absolutely routed the Kansas City Chiefs, the two-time defending Super Bowl champions, 40 to 22. It was a slaughter. The Eagles were able to get to Patrick Mahomes without even blitzing, because their pass rush is just so good. You obviously had Cooper DeJean with the pick six that pretty much was the nail in the coffin, even though the Chiefs made many more blunders and really couldn't get back into the game, um, despite any sort of heroic efforts from Patrick Mahomes. Yeah, it was a rout, and the score, even though it reads 40 to 22, it was not that close. Like it was even more lopsided than that score shows. So I, I'm not one to just say, oh, like Patrick Mahomes isn't the GOAT, or he like or like, oh, now he's lost two Super Bowls, um like Tom Brady is the GOAT or whatever. It's just like, oh my God, are we like, why are we doing this? Like, uh, yeah, the Chiefs fatigue is real. The Chiefs are kind of annoying in this current day and age, but so was the Tom Brady and the Patriots way back when. Even though, like, admittedly, I don't say this very much, but the Patriots were my favorite team as a kid. That is definitely, not the case anymore. I did this thing called growing up, and yeah, it just really it just really doesn't hit the same anymore. So it it is definitely, especially because the Chiefs are just so MAGA coded, especially we had Jackson Mahomes taking a selfie with Donald Trump, and obviously you have Brittany Mahomes in the past has said some, pro-Trump things. And then obviously you have Harrison Butker, who is a just deeply bigoted conservative asshole. Um, it's all things, with all those things combined, it's just like, oh my God, like I'm glad uh the Chiefs finally went down in the Super Bowl. um God, the also you had the Fox score bug, which was like the ugliest thing in the world. It looks like it was made in Microsoft Excel. It looks like it was made on a fucking spreadsheet. That's how like cheap it looked. And seeing that throughout the whole game was such an eyesore. And the fact that this is probably going to be used on future telecasts for Fox, not just on with the NFL on Fox, but also with uh, potentially their college basketball, college football broadcasts, and it just really is so. Oh, and also, well, actually, not with the regional sports networks because they're all with Bally now. Um, but yeah, it really was such a painful score bug to look at, and I've said this before, where I am very partial to the older score bugs when I first started watching. I know this is very nostalgia coded, but just go back and look at like the NFL on Fox games from like 2010, 2011, and also like the CBS score bug from around the same time, like 2009 to 2012 or 2013. Like that's where it was at. Like you can't get much better than that. It was so pretty to look at. And then ever since then, it's just gone downhill. The CBS score bug is kind of the same way. So I really like, I know I'm very like weird about score bugs, but that's just something I've always paid attention to. Um, so anyway, and then also you had oh God, you had Kevin Burkhardt shouting out a very just a corpse like figure in Rupert Murdoch, who is obviously the Fox News like mogul, um who has been basically one of the most damaging people in terms of like news corporations. And it's really like, God, he's 93 years old. Can this motherfucker just like not, you know? It's like I get it, you're working at Fox, but like, come on, you don't have to do that. You don't have to do that. Um, yeah, basically has been the figurehead for much of the disinformation and misinformation that has been spread, not just with Fox, but also with Sky News in Australia, a very conservative um, outlet. And really, like, if you watch the show Succession, which is based off the Murdoch family, in this case, it's the Roy family with Logan Roy being the patriarch and the stand-in for Rupert Murdoch. Um, you'll pretty much know, like, I mean, it's a satire, but it's really like um, when you think about it in that way, it's just so it's really really funny how it's portrayed. I cannot recommend that show enough. One of the funniest shows, one of the most well written shows, well, like incredible, incredibly well acted. And yeah, I cannot recommend it enough. And then obviously you had Drake's 3000th funeral at the hands of Kendrick Lamar. um God, he was playing stuff. I mean, obviously, he would play stuff off the new album. Gene X, he obviously played Not Like Us, which was, despite the quality not sounding as great, um, you still, I mean, it was still funny to see that, even with it being very censored. SZA's appearance was great. Love her a lot. And then you had Serena Williams dancing uh, when Not Like Us was playing, and then you had Samuel L. Jackson as Uncle Sam. Uh, and yeah, very very misunderstood among a lot of conservatives. A lot of pedophiles in the media and the we're not very happy in pop culture, especially people like Matt Gaetz and Ted Nugent. We're not very happy because Ted Nugent at one point tweeted out, "Hey, Kendrick Lamar, you suck." Um, Keep in mind that Ted Nugent has had multiple accusations and very credible accusations of being a pedophile, and not just accusations. I think he actually did. Um, yeah, I think he did end up having sexual relations with underage girls. Um, yeah, so those are the types of people that will really uh would probably be upset at something like Kendrick Lamar's Not Like Us and the halftime performance. Like all the people saying, "Oh, it's such a DEI halftime show. This is what the Empire's trying to do to get the wokeness back in the fray." Whatever. Like you idiots don't know what you're talking about. So, oh boy. With that being said, let's talk about some college basketball, shall we? Because that's what this podcast is about, right? Um, yeah. So big news, or a big result that happened on Super Bowl Sunday. Texas women's beats South Carolina, suffering their first conference loss in, I believe, over 3 years. Um, that, I mean, regular season wise, anyway. I think they lost to Kentucky in the SEC tournament a few years back, but yeah, 57 consecutive wins for South Carolina in SEC play snapped. Texas, number 4 in the country at the time. I believe they're now at number 3, I want to say, behind UCLA and I believe Notre Dame. Um, they won 66 to 62. Madison Booker had 20 points, 11 rebounds. She really had a a fantastic game for Texas. And again, for South Carolina, it just doesn't look like the same team. They're a very talented team even still, but I just think they have so much talent that sometimes I feel like they don't know exactly what to do with it. Like Don Staley is great. He's a great coach and can figure this out. But I don't know when Chloe Kitts is only scoring 9 points, Tahina Paopao is only scoring eight. I mean, Mylasia Fulwiley had a pretty good game off the bench with 13 points. I believe Mylasia Fulwiley should probably get more playing time. I definitely think she should be starting over Raven Johnson. That's just me though. Uh, yeah, I mean, South Carolina, not a great shooting team as is, so when their inside game isn't going um, all that strongly, it really does affect them quite a bit. And Texas, again, Madison Booker had another fantastic game, um, with 20 points, 11 rebounds. She was really able to pick apart a lot of what South Carolina usually likes to do. And yeah, for a 6'1" forward like her, she definitely against South Carolina's size, it wasn't like the most efficient game, but she hit enough shots for Texas. Um, and really like I mean, also hitting some clutch free throws down the stretch to put this one away. So good, good job for Texas beating South Carolina. Um, I think South Carolina had a shot to tie it at the end. But yeah, Roy Harmon also hit some clutch free throws as well as Booker. So good job on Texas for beating South Carolina. That was a fantastic game. And then UCLA and Notre Dame both won. So UCLA still unbeaten. Notre Dame is still undefeated in conference play. So they're going to move up to number two, or I think they already have moved up to number two. Um, Duke and North Carolina won again, so that's not a surprise. Another pretty big upset that happened Monday: Ole Miss defeating Kentucky, number eight in the country, 66 to 57. Um, I didn't honestly like catch a lot of this game, so I didn't. I did see some highlights, but Madison Scott had a fantastic game for Ole Miss. And Georgia Amore, when she isn't hitting the mark, she is basically the women's equivalent to Lamont Butler, who I'll get to Kentucky on the men's side in a second. Um, but when she isn't like shooting all that well, it really it definitely hurts Kentucky a lot because a lot of the offense is driven through her. And again, I for someone like Georgia Amore, I really wanted her to come to Indiana, but it's understandable why she'd follow Kenny Brooks to Kentucky. Um, but yeah, Ole Miss really with a really big win here. I also like the Big 12 race, very, very intriguing. Like one of the most intriguing conferences in the entire country because you have teams like TCU who are now 11 and 2 in the conference after beating BYU, one of the most talented teams in like you obviously have Sedona Prince and Haley Van Lith playing for TCU. So they are like once tournament time comes around and if they keep up their winning ways in the Big 12, they can really um, they can really make some noise. I think TCU might be an Elite Eight team at the very least. Um, Baylor also is 11 and 2 after defeating West Virginia, who's 18th in the country, 75 to 65. Um, poor, I mean, what was I gonna say? Uh, yeah, Jordan Harrison had a good game for West Virginia, 20 points. But then Aaronette Vonleh, the sister of Noah Vonleh, I believe, had 21 points for Baylor. So great win for them, obviously. Um, the big another wait, where was it? I think it's on Sunday. Yeah, South Carolina. Yukon, South Carolina is on Sunday at 1. So is the replacement for the NFL this year. we have that game, and then we also have LSU going to Texas. That is a really good game to watch. And then on you have USC at Washington as well. TCU's in action against Arizona, and then Michigan State at UCLA. Still unbeaten UCLA at 23-0. And then they play tomorrow at USC. Uh, number one versus number six on Peacock at 10 o'clock. So make sure you're keeping up with that because man, you have Juju Watkins versus Lauren Betts, and I mean Kiki Ariafen as well. Oh man, that's gonna be a great game to watch. So make sure you block out some time to catch up on some women's hoops if you haven't been paying it much attention to them this year because oh boy, we have some great matchups. So anyway, that being said, let's switch over to the men's side. It's a very rainy day outside. It's like I feel like I'm always more productive. I don't know how other people are when it comes to this, but I feel like I'm like more productive when it's raining outside. I definitely I definitely get it from my mom. She loved, when she was still living, she was alive. Yeah, she had to be alive in order to live. She loved the rain and she loved like really dark weather. And so I definitely think I got it from her. Yeah, so that's basically where I think I get that from. So anyway, let's recap some action for some games that wasn't quite able to get to at the time. But Memphis is now 20-4 and number 14 in the country now. After beating Temple, they got their revenge, 90-82. PJ Haggerty, I haven't. The weird thing is, I haven't seen him in a lot of mock draft boards, but he's averaging 21 points per game for a team that's 20-4, shooting 43% from three. I'm sorry, but you got to keep an eye on PJ Haggerty if you haven't seen him yet. This dude can ball, and I really like. I don't know why Memphis is. I mean, obviously they're in the American Athletic Conference. It's not a strong conference aside from like North Texas, but um and I guess like let's see. I'm still like it just it doesn't really appear like it is a mid-major conference to be fair, but at the same time it's like um we have to start paying a little more attention to this Memphis team because again, they're 20-4, they're 10-1 in conference play. Yeah, aside from North Texas, UAB's kind of right there, but they're 15-9. So, yeah, Memphis is just they're clearly like the favorite right now to win the American, and I think they will. Their only loss was to Temple, who they got their revenge on. As long as Penny Hardaway can keep this team playing at a high level, still get the ball to Haggerty and Tyrese Hunter, and as long as Colby Rogers and Dane Danger kind of being a spot starter, uh, Musa Cisse as well. With size, they have size, they have shooting. This team can play. So right now, I think they're hovering around like a 5 or 6 seed at this current moment. But if they keep winning, I mean they're gonna keep climbing, and they definitely have some good opportunities too in the American. So we'll see. I believe they don't play North Texas again, I don't think. At least in the regular season. So um no, they do not. Huh. Well, they did win their only matchup by four. So if those two meet in the AAC like championship game, perhaps that could be. I mean, this could be a two-bid league. I mean, Memphis is pretty much the only one guaranteed. North Texas probably has to win the American in order to make the NCAA tournament. And speaking of teams that probably won't make the NCAA tournament, Rutgers loses again, 90-81, despite Dylan Harper having 20 points. Another potential top five pick, Ace Bailey only had four, as Maryland wins 90 to 81. Derek Queen with 29 points. 29. Um, yeah, which I'll get to a higher total scoring at some point in this episode because goddamn did Liam McNeely go off. Um, so anyway, let's let's move on. Clemson blew out North Carolina. Um, another big hit to UNC's NCAA tournament berth. 14-11, 7-6 overall is North Carolina. Um, Man, this team's just not good. I've been saying North Carolina's a very suspect basketball team for even before ACC play started, and it's pretty much come to fruition. Not that I've been preying on their downfall. I have not. But Clemson also, after losing to Georgia Tech, has beaten both Duke and North Carolina now. Victor Locken had 22 points, hit I think three or fourth triples in the first half. Another guy that like with PJ Haggerty, Victor Locken, I think definitely needs to be reevaluated when it comes to the NBA draft because this dude looked great. Um, and I think his playing style, especially with I know some people compared him to like a taller Luka Doncic in a way. He's 6'11", is shooting 41% from three. Um, he's this dude can play and is also unlike a certain player who plays for Kansas, who I will not name. He is actually a better defender, better interior defender. Um, than Hunter Dickinson. So anyway, with that said, oh yeah, McNeese is now 13-1 in the Southland Conference, 67 to 51. Will Wade doing another really good job. I get here's the thing with I get McNeese and Morehead State confused quite a bit. He coaches McNeese, right? Yes. Okay. Yes. Will Wade is the head coach. He has them at 19-6, 13-1 overall. Um, Another big win for them. And then on Tuesday, we had a lot of action happening. So this was yesterday. Auburn defeated Vanderbilt 80 to 68 after Vanderbilt was leading for quite a bit. But you had Cheney Johnson having 20 points to Hod Pettiford. Um, I mean, they have so many shooters. Yeah, Pettiford hit a couple big threes in this one. Chad Baker Mazara didn't have a great game. He got hurt against Florida. He just didn't look all that great. But then Cheney Johnson, of course, came off the bench, went 9 of 10 from the floor. Um, Denver Jones had 21 points, 5 of 7 for three. So it's like for Auburn, if one guy goes cold like Chad Baker Mazara or Miles Kelly, a guy like Denver Jones can step up and hit five threes. And it's just like Janai Broom had 17 points, but he was very inefficient in this one. So again, Vanderbilt had Auburn down in this one, but uh, yeah, for Auburn, it's really hard to keep them down. And we saw that here. And then kind of the same thing with Alabama, beating Texas 103 to 80. This was crazy. Again, like I've talked about Alabama's depth so often on this podcast. Um, when you have LeBaron Philon coming off the bench having 15 points, hitting three triples, you have Mohamed Diabate hitting three threes, you have Aiden Holloway hitting three threes, three double-digit scores off the bench, by the way. And that doesn't even include Jaron Stevenson having 22 points. That doesn't even include Mark Sears having 18 points. It doesn't matter that Cliff Amore and Grant Nelson didn't score all that much. It's like um it really is like uh their depth is just absolutely incredible. Um I don't even like it is almost like it's hard for me to say who is better right now, Auburn or Alabama, because they both have such a gigantic strength. that most other teams really can't compete with. I mean, Trey Johnson had a really good game, 24 points for Texas, one of the best freshmen in the country again. But look, when you're facing this Alabama team that can just strike for 17 pointers and bringing so many like potential NBA players off the bench, like that's almost unfair for most other teams. Like Alabama right now, I mean, a lot's going to be told. Auburn, Alabama, number one in the coaches poll in Alabama, number one in the AP poll in Auburn, going at it on Saturday. Holy crap. Like that's going to be also must see television. Geez Louise. So, yeah, a lot of that will factor on what happens in that game. But right now, if I had to pick, it'd probably be Alabama. Um, I mean, Auburn's a really good team. Don't get me wrong, but Alabama scares me much more than Auburn does. Like Auburn's defense, to be fair, is better overall than Alabama's. But the thing is, when you're facing the Crimson Tide, you just have to pay attention to so much offensively, um, and they're just so damn efficient. Like this is I mean, Alabama's almost a lock for a Final Four run, I think, unless they get a bad matchup against like someone who can really slow them down. Um, but speaking of the SEC, number three in the country, tied for third with Duke, is Florida. They beat Mississippi State on the road, 81-68. Mississippi State has six conference losses this year. They're number 22 in the country, and all six of their losses, I think, have come to ranked opponents, and I think most of them are in the top 10 right now. So it's just like that's crazy how good the SEC is. And speaking of which, Tennessee goes down to Kentucky, who sweeps the Volunteers 75-64. Kind of a scary moment when Lamont Butler got hurt. I thought when that happened, Tennessee might um, grab this game from them. But again, Tennessee 3 of 18 from three. Igor Milicic put the team on his back in the second half, tied the game at a few points, but Kentucky 12 of 24 from three. Kobe Bria hit some big threes in this one. Otega Owe had 13. Ainsley Almanor had 13. And again, Lamont Butler, when he's in the game, it affects Kentucky so much, but he only played 22 minutes this game, and Kentucky still won. So, but I think again for Tennessee, when you're shooting 3 of 18 from three, that does kind of hurt a lot. Um, and so this one, especially, yeah, Jordan Gainey going over 4 from three. Chaz Lanier went 0 for 7. When those two are missing threes, we had missing that many 3 pointers. Um, there's a problem there. Zakai Ziegler went 0 for 2, despite he had 17 points. He had a pretty good game. Igor Milicic, though, is the only one for Tennessee who hit a three in this one, and he hit three of them, but it was not enough. So, again, Lanier and Gainey have to get going come tournament time, or else this Tennessee team like might be in trouble. Um, because man, I don't want to say that, but like because Tennessee is pretty fun to watch when their offense is on, but when it's not, it's just like the most nauseating product you could possibly watch. And speaking of the most nauseating product you could ever watch, we have Big Ten basketball. Michigan defeats Purdue 75-73. 20th ranked Michigan defeats number seven Purdue. Despite Braden Smith having 24 points, he tried to will them back into this one when Michigan had that really late rally. But man, Danny Wolf is just a mismatch for so many teams. A 7 footer who can put the ball on the floor, drive it easily, can shoot the three. And when you pair him with another 7 footer in Vladislav Golden, who is also kind of similar in that regard, but also can play more back to the basket, such a mismatch. And you saw that with for Michigan against Indiana, who I'll get to in a second. Um, but yeah, Trey Donaldson had another really good game. Trey Kaufman ran for Purdue, had 22 points. Fletcher Lawyer had 15, but no bench points for Purdue. CJ Cox had 7, but again, oh man, like it's weird to see guys like uh, Camden Heidi and Miles Colvin going scoreless. Like Miles Colvin at least grabs some rebounds, but Heidi just like I don't know, man. I don't know. I'm starting to question if he's like I mean he's a good athlete, but like I'm not quite sure right now about his actual skill level. Um I think a lot of that was masked last year because of how good Zach Edey was. Um but anyway, Texas A&M defeated Georgia 69 to 53. Not much to say about that one, but Texas A&M also a very quiet number 8 team in the country right now. And right now I would say is probably on the 3 line. I don't think they're quite on the 2 line right now, but I think if they keep winning in SEC play, they could definitely get themselves up there. Um, because man, the SEC is just so good this year. Iowa State won on the road against UCF. It's pretty remarkable how much better this team is with Milan Momcilovic on the floor. Even if he isn't scoring all that much, their offense looks better overall. Like granted, they didn't have like a fantastic offensive game, but just a very balanced game, I think. And that's what you kind of need to get back on track. Just get your team back into rhythm against UCF, who's not a great basketball team this year. Um, but Kashawn Gilbert had 15. Curtis Jones back in his six-man role had 10, but he only went 2 of 9 from three. So maybe the shooting touch will come back for him at some point. But also just not a lot to say about that one. Kansas defeated Colorado. Now number 17 Kansas wins 71 to 59. I don't have a ton to say about that one because Colorado is terrible this year. Marquette defeated DePaul 68 to 58. Also not a ton to say about that one. Kansas State wins again. They are now 13 and 11, which does not sound good, but they're 7-6 in Big 12 play. And I believe they've won 6 in a row now. And they've won like 5 in a row against ranked opponents. Yeah, 6 straight wins. Yeah, Doug McDaniel, Michigan transfer, had 24 points. Arizona falls. They're now 11 and 2. So now Houston with their win against Baylor. I forgot to mention that one. Houston did defeat Baylor. Houston's now alone for first in the Big 12 currently. But yeah, Kansas State is a team that can really, like, if they get going with all the talent they have, especially with Coleman Hawkins, Doug McDaniel, um, they can really Brendan Hausen, if he can find his shooting touch, could be really good. Arizona went 2 of 22 from three, and would it shock you to know that Caleb Love went 0 of 7 from three in this game? Just super, super inconsistent. Um, Shooting 30% on the year. Like, I get it, he's played better as of late, but like, come on. This is this is just like it again is like so inconsistent. As I've said, like he had a great game. I say great game, but like it was at the very least like um, heroics against Iowa State at home when he hit the half court shot and then hit a couple threes in overtime to win that game. But then he'll have games like this where he goes 0 for 7. But again, like he's got that Dion Waiters mentality, man. He just keeps firing away, even though he went 3 of 15 overall from the floor. So yeah, another big win for Kansas State. Indiana, let's go Hoosiers! They defeat Michigan State on the road. Number 11 Michigan State, 71 to 67. Malik Renew, or Malik Renee, as they as it says on ESPN. He had 19 points, 12 rebounds. He had probably his best game of the year, especially since coming back from injury. Um, Umar Ballo had 14. Miles Rice came off the bench in this game, had 10 points. Luke Goody starting again. I think Luke Goody should be starting. I think maybe sub Leal for Miles Rice, and I think that lineup is pretty good. But Indiana beats in like again they beat. they weren't allowing Michigan State to do a lot of what they usually do, which is just wear you down on the front court, especially when you have guys like, Umar Ballo and Malik Renew. They could kind of neutralize that. And Jace Richardson also didn't have a great game, coming off his fantastic 29-point performance against Oregon. Um, Only had 13 this game. Jaden Akins had 14. But yeah, this was Malik Renew's game. They were finally hitting a lot of their shots, and I like, man, Indiana is still not a very good team, and I'm fully expecting a letdown Friday against UCLA, but I'll take it, especially because Tom Izzo was not able to break the record for most conference wins by a head coach, which is held by Bob Knight. Uh, and it's it would have been fitting had that record come against Indiana for Tom Izzo and Michigan State, but alas, it did not happen. So they'll have to wait another game in order for that to happen. So I still think Michigan State is good, but again, in this case, like when teams are able to um are able to have front court players that can neutralize a lot of what they like to do, especially with guys like Jackson Kohler and Carson Cooper, they are vulnerable, especially because their guards, aside from Jace Richardson, um, they can be very inconsistent. So if you catch them on a bad shooting night, they can be a pretty vulnerable pick for an upset. So then we have the one of the big stars of this week so far, Liam freaking McNeely. Look, I know he decommitted from Indiana. I get that, but boy, I can't hate on this dude can ball. Um, 38 points, 5 of 10 from 3, 12 of 22 from the floor. UConn gets their revenge against Creighton. Dan Hurley gets his first win at Creighton. UConn gets their first win at Creighton in program history. Not saying it was all roses for UConn because again, their front court is still very, very, very suspect, especially with Samson Johnson and Terrace Reed scoring a combined 2 points this game. Liam McNeely saved them, especially when Solo Ball and Alex Caravan went a combined 0 for 11 from three. Like, dude, Alex Caravan's confidence is just shot. He went from like a 40 something percent 3-point shooter earlier this year, and now it's down to 34%. This dude is ice cold from three. Um, he needs to get it on track, and UConn has a great opportunity again against Seton Hall for some of their players to snap out of the shooting funk. But good God, this shooting wise, UConn, aside from Liam McNeely, who won this game for UConn, um, did a really good job. UConn, first time they've been unranked, I believe, since 2022, 23 season, I believe. And then for Creighton, Stephen Ashworth also didn't have a great shooting game at 0 for 5 from 3, had 13 points, but 11 of them came from the free throw line. And, Ryan Kalkbrenner had 13, but Creighton just not a very good game at home, especially because they're ranked. It's like you should probably beat UConn, a team you've already beaten. But Liam McNeely, again, he's the reason why UConn wins, and he's the reason why UConn is still a really, 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 really um, good candidate for a deep run. Especially like I don't want to count out UConn, even though I hate Dan Hurley a lot. He's a smug prick who gets into fights with fans, who gets into arguments with fans. Um, just one of the most unlikable douches in the sports world right now. Um, just a complete like, yeah, not a very good guy, but he's a great coach. So yeah, Liam McNeely, probably a top 10 draft pick at this moment right now, if I had to guess. Yeah, really, really good stuff from him. So moving on a little bit to some mid-major action, Akron is now 11-0 in the MAC, 19-5 overall after defeating Western Michigan. 105 to 92. But Miami of Ohio also right behind them at 10-1 in the MAC, 92 to 80 over Toledo. Big win for them. Cam Kraft for Miami of Ohio had 40 points for them. So really, really good game for him. George Mason beats St. Louis on the road. This was a game I thought would be part of what decides the Atlantic 10 this year. George Mason gets to the 20 win plateau. They're now 20 and 5, excuse me, and then 11 and 1 overall in the Atlantic 10. St. Louis, despite Robbie Avila having 27 points, 9 rebounds. Again, I could see Robbie Avila maybe being in the NBA, but St. Louis, on the whole, just isn't a very good team. George Mason is a really good team. One of the best defenses, one of the sneakiest best defenses in the country. I still don't think they're getting a lot of respect offensively. Um, the eye test certainly doesn't paint them as the 185th team in offensive efficiency for Ken Palm, but I feel like they can really make some noise if they are able to win the Atlantic 10. It's between them and obviously with for VCU, who's 9-2 this year. But right now, George Mason has the inside track. Um, so that could be pretty interesting to watch come down the stretch. So Illinois defeats UCLA 83 to 78. Kaspers Yakuchonis bouncing back with for an Illinois team that's been struggling as of late. Beats UCLA 83 to 78. This was a pretty low scoring game in the first half, and then both teams just decided to go off in the second half. Um, yeah, when Yakuchonis plays well, Illinois is a really difficult team to beat. Tomislava Visic hit 4 threes in this one for Illinois. So I believe they've won 2 in a row now, beating both Minnesota and UCLA. SMU is quickly becoming one of the better teams in the ACC. Might be. Um, See, right now it's probably a 5 bid league. The ACC is with for Duke, Clemson, Louisville, SMU, and maybe Wake Forest. Wake Forest can it's a 4 or 5 bid league right now. North Carolina is not in the NCAA tournament, so SMU though defeats Pittsburgh 83 to 63. They're now 19-5 and 10-3 in the ACC. And then Utah State defeats Colorado State 93 to 85. Mason Falslev had 22 points against Colorado State, keeping pace with New Mexico for the top of the Mountain West race. San Diego State also gets a big win, winning on the road against San Jose State, a team that gave them a pretty good scare in the first matchup, where San Diego State had to bounce back like quickly. They had to come back from like 25 points to beat San Jose State, but they get the win on the road. San Jose State had an opportunity to win at the buzzer, but it was no good. So San Diego State wins, a big win for their NCAA tournament hopes. St. Mary's now 12-1 in the West Coast Conference after defeating Santa Clara 73 to 64. Marchulionis, I think is how you pronounce his name. 24 points, 6 assists, 3 steals for him, leading the way. They have 2 Lithuanians in their starting lineup. Morauskas, Paulus Morauskas only had 1 point starting, but like, um, it's still like it's kind of like South Carolina when they had uh Hakavicius and Kaichinis at the same time in the mid 2010s. Like that's kind of what it reminds me of. So yeah, big win for them. The West Coast Conference standings as they look right now are St. Mary's at 12-1, and then San Francisco is at 10-3, sorry, and then Gonzaga not right behind them. Santa Clara is not a bad basketball team at 9-5, 17-10 overall, but St. Mary's did a really good job at preventing Santa Clara from coming back in this one because it looked like Santa Clara was going to possibly steal this one on the road, but St. Mary's is still on top of the conference, so great win for them. And I've already mentioned some of the games happening right now, but happening later this week. But St. John's and Villanova is currently playing right now. Villanova is up 3 on St. John's at home. So very interesting to see that how that game ends up playing out. Oh, you have an absolute sickos matchup with Iowa and Rutgers. Iowa, all offense, no defense versus Rutgers, who has kind of implemented that strategy. This game could get completely bonkers. So just for sicko purposes, I wanted to shout out that game. So and then, yeah, I don't really have a ton else to say. I mean, Duke is playing California at home. Texas Tech is playing at home against Arizona State. Missouri, 21 in the country, is playing Oklahoma at home. New Mexico at home against Wyoming. That's a big game in the Mountain West. Win that one and you're 13-1. You remain a game ahead of Utah State for top of the top of the Mountain West standings. So, anyway, with that being said, I think that will do it all for me this episode. Yeah, I mean this is going to be a great weekend for college basketball, both men's and women's. So, if you are if you are looking for something to watch still, if your weekends are going to be empty, and you want to still watch some sports, consider watching some college basketball, and you can further follow along with me on this journey. Um, yeah. So anyway, all right. Thank you all very much for listening. Also, you can email the pod at crimsonmiserypod@gmail.com if you have any suggestions for me. Might have a bonus episode for you all at some point very soon that's non-college basketball related. But until then, I will see you all next time when the exciting college basketball slate this weekend has gone final. So, anyway, thanks again. Appreciate y'all listening, and I will see you next time. Bye bye.